One of the biggest stories in the Biden administration was how NGOs were helping to facilitate illegal immigration. And now that Trump is in office, have things changed? Well, there's still an NGO in Arizona right now, and this is uncovered by the Heritage Oversight Project, that is still telling illegal immigrants to lie to law enforcement. So what can be done, and what is the latest that's going on? Mike Howell is the executive director of the Heritage Oversight Project, and he joins us right now to discuss all this. So what did you find in Arizona?
So out in Arizona, there's this nonprofit. It's run by some Presbyterian church. It's basically a place for illegals to come, congregate, and get jobs. They farm out illegals for jobs to people who want to hire them for either like painting, construction, what have you. So in this little center, they had an official who was involved with the Mexican consulate. So the country of Mexico's connected representatives in the United States come by and coach the illegals on how to evade deportation, instructing them to lie to ICE. For instance, one of the quips she had was, if an ICE agent shows up and says, hey, are you working for this company? Just say you're a volunteer. So they're really thinking about these like legal ways to beat it back. And I think this means that the state of Mexico and their representatives in the US need to get a hard look from the Trump administration. Why are we letting this foreign interference happen in our country with another country's flag hanging over it?
So where's the line here? Because, I mean, Catholic Charities seems to have kind of carefully walked the line where they've put out a video informing people of their rights where they'd be questioned. But it seems like telling you to lie to law enforcement, I don't know, that's not really illegal, I suppose, but it seems to be skirting it. Where does the line draw when it comes to actually obstructing the law and something that can be investigated by DOJ versus advising people as to how to respond to a ticket or questioning?
Yeah, so some things that are clearly across the line, and this was flagged by Pam Bondi. Her first day in office, she issued a memoranda that basically said, we're going to start enforcing these immigration-related criminal statutes. Things like harboring illegals, providing for their transportation, actually impeding and obstructing ICE. And so this is going to come into play. A lot of these organizations, and we got videos coming out, we'll show the whole world, are telling ICE they cannot enter and things like that. So what happens when ICE goes into these places and actually are refused entry by these nonprofits? And that's going to happen soon. Right now we're at this stage.
Sanctuary,
yeah. They literally think the Hunchback of Notre Dame movie is real, where you can just yell sanctuary and no one's allowed to come in.
And the Presbyterians have churches.
Yeah, that was also a surprise.
So homeless shelter now. We're coming in.
Shots fired.
But this is billions of dollars flying around the country. And one last thing, the USCCB, the Catholic bishops, they're getting the best legal advice money can buy, and they're getting it for free from Gibson Dunn, one of these law firms that'll come into Republican offices and be like, hey, we're on your side. No, they're not. They're suing Trump again.
I think one of the most interesting things that you've been working on recently is this secret resistance blue state project. Tell us about that.
So a couple days after the election, all these state AGs got together and signed an agreement, basically a litigation agreement. They said, hey, we're going at this together, and the very first thing we're going to do, after getting blown out, shellacked in the election, it's not gas and groceries, it's not we're going to get serious about crime, it's not addressing anything that got them swept. It was birthright citizenship. So all of them got together, signed this pact, said we are going, as soon as Trump takes office, we're going to be ready, we're going to sue him on birthright citizenship. Why? Why birthright citizenship? Because they're trying to preserve the political gains of the Biden border crisis. Think about it. 10 million people came in. They're going to have some kids. The Dems' whole game plan is to turn them into voters. So the matter of utmost priority was birthright, not anything that is actually politically viable or they can sell to common sense Americans. It's just that it's further confirmation that the border crisis and immigration is just about adding new voters.
So I'm old enough to remember the Gang of Eight, the Gang of Six, and all the Republicans who were like absolutely terrified. Old enough to remember Jeb Bush's immigration is an act of love, and the GOP being completely afraid of this. Birthright citizenship seems as baked into this as Emma Lazarus' Constitution and Fightful Goes West, an American Tale. This is a part of the American story. So
Let's not bring Fievel into it. Come on, let's not bring Fievel into it.
For the second time on this show, I'm actually pretty impressed, Bedford.
It shows my age, right?
Yeah.
But is this actually going to change? Are they going to? Is this just never actually been seriously constitutionally questioned before until now? And if that's the case, then could birthright citizenship be struck down?
I absolutely think it will be struck down. We are in the perfect environment. First, politically speaking, and let's not pretend the Supreme Court's not a political animal. These judges, especially Chief Justice Roberts, They care about what people say at the country club, right? If you approached the birthright citizenship question 10 years ago, you probably would have had that kind of Jeb Bush reaction or the Gang of Eight reaction. Right now, all of these things, birthright citizenship, mass deportation, complete border security, they fit squarely in the common sense arena. And that's because everybody is up to the joke, or onto the joke now, that the left used border and immigration for the purposes of political change, to get people into the country to vote for them. That was made abundantly clear in the border crisis. 2, on the legal front, the White House has put a lot of thought into how they're going about this. What they're doing is essentially structured to get around some of the more, articulated arguments, particularly from a judge named Judge Howell, who has come out and, a lot of people say maybe he can be on the Supreme Court one day. But he has, kind of the right standard bearer of why birthright citizenship can't be changed. And so they've carefully constructed the legal argument to address his concerns, which is why you're not seeing a retroactive, we're going to take away birthright citizenship for everyone who's already got it, which I would have done, and I think, is a principally right thing to do. But they're narrowly tailoring it. And so the old decision in Wong v. Kim Ark is basically like the kid of a Chinese legal resident. They count. Here, the application is factually different. It's the children of a ton of illegal aliens right after a border crisis. And it's the phrase subject to the jurisdiction thereof, I think, is going to be heavily litigated. And the more you see these arguments progress and advance around that factual pattern, everyone's like, yeah, these illegal aliens aren't subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S. They have no political allegiance.
All right, let's stick with non-citizens, because I know that Oversight Project has something that you've done an investigation on for the military-aged men that aren't citizens in the country. Break that down for us.
All right, I love this one that our team came up with. Selective service. We're all registered, right? No one's going to jail here. You got to fill out your card. If you're between 18 and 26.
Was I supposed to do that?
I got you. Yeah, I got you.
Thanks.
So, selective service. It's about mandatory registration for every male in the United States in that age range. Every male. That includes illegal alien males. Do you think that the illegal aliens have been registering for the selective service? No. I know they haven't, because if they had, during the biggest border crisis in history, the biggest surge of military-age males in history, there would have been a spike in the selective service registrations, right? There's not. We got the data. They're only drawing it from the legal sources of immigration, USCIS, nothing from ICE, nothing from CBP. So what does that mean? That means all of them are subject to enhanced criminal penalties. They can go to jail for about 5 years, $250,000 in fines. What does that really mean? As people on Capitol Hill say, I only want to deport the criminal illegal aliens. That's all I want to do. I don't like the Trump mandate. I just want to do the worst of the worst. That'll be the talk point. Well, guess what? Every military-aged male in the United States will be a criminal illegal alien if this statute is enforced. So go out, see if they've registered. If not, 5 years in prison or get out. It's an enhancement. It's an ability to wrap these people up with more criminal process. It gets other agencies involved, and I think it is a great way to expand the government's role in this beautiful mass deportation.
We've got a lot of Napoleon in the news lately between Donald Trump and birthright citizenship, and by the way, now you're in the Army. Surprise.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
you're French now.
We're not letting them serve. They might dig a ditch one day if we need it, but they don't get guns.
Get in, we're going to Russia.
They get home.
What's really important about these particular arguments, or like you said, the narrow birthright argument, and this one, when it comes to selective service, is that it starts to educate people's minds. It starts to get them to think about the reality that is here on the ground when it comes to illegal immigrants all over the place throughout the country. It really helps, it's a concrete picture, right? Because the other side has an abstract picture. That's very much like the globalist sort of, we love everybody, you have to love everybody. Right, and this is specific and concrete. So I think what you said about the Supreme Court is well said, that over time, this just makes sense in the 21st century. People can travel easily. Birthright citizenship, coming and magically becoming a citizen because of where you're born doesn't really make sense. Most countries don't do it. It makes even less sense now than it did 100 years ago. But what's so important about your work is that it's not just about like the direct change to me. It's also about educating people as we go, because people like these stories. It helps them to think about, right, how reality actually works. And, I wish politicians, the Trump administration is doing a good job of this now. Like, that was what was lacking in the past. I mean, you just think about this one. We've seen conservatives argue for small government for, decades, right? But in order to actually do that, you have to show people examples. They just did that in spades. It was like a crash course in media, like a media training. Like, this is how you prep the American mind for taking action,
I love that, and I appreciate it. I think this is a story-rich environment because of all the excesses we have seen from the left, particularly over the last 4 years. And they invoke the central principles that I think we all most care about. Like when we talk about selective service or birthright, we're talking about what it means to be a citizen, and like your obligations and the benefits and rights that are conferred in exchange. And when you start speaking in those terms, you just further move out this concept of illegal immigration being a passable and acceptable thing. And furthermore, the left, the reason they were able to scare the right for so long, and many of our elected leaders are still scared, is they racialize
Almost
the
all of
issue.
them.
All of them. They don't want to be called racist. If you support border security and immigration enforcement,
It's the scariest thing for a Republican
It's
to
so
be
scary
called.
for them. Yeah.
Where's Senator Steve King?
It's the worst thing in the world. God bless Steve King. But yeah, now that they've lost the control of that argument, the race card's not working in this.
Yeah.
Now people are like, we don't need this anymore. And it doesn't matter what country you're from.
All right, Mike, bring us home with this one, because I see that you guys have big law out there in Gibson Dunn, and they're going out there, like many people right now, trying to sue President Trump, and they're jumping on board. So let us know what they're doing, trying to freeze these refugee funds.
We should know Gibson Dunn, traditionally known back in the day as a right-leaning big law firm.
We need to do a better job on the right of canceling law firms and people who oppose the mandate and the agenda. And we don't do that nearly enough. A lot of people skate through these law firms, go on to get judgeships, prime postings. There should be a cost imposed for people who profit maximize and make a crap ton of money working in these places that are tearing down our movement and fighting against its advancement.
That's how you build it.
That's how you build it.
That's how Mitch McConnell built his influence network. You hire his people all throughout D.C. Do the opposite.
Right. And I can think of no better example. Of course, all big law is pretty bad, but Gibson Dunn, in my mind, has really been at the forefront of throwing their legal ammunition at hurting the right. So they sued Jim Jordan last Congress on behalf of New York, and so they just dropped all these lawyers in and were helping out in that as it related to the Trump prosecution. But now they threw 8 of their attorneys to represent the Catholic bishops to fight against Trump's freezing of refugee resettlement funds, quote unquote, the cash cow for this entire NGO thing. And so they're doing it for free. We asked the bishops pro bono. And so they also represented all the Gitmo detainees back in the day. So when are we going to wise up and say, we're not taking meetings with these people. We're not taking people who used to work there unless they sufficiently repent. So I'm sick of it, and we're going to keep calling it out.
So, real quick, well, we got you right here in the room here in Washington, D.C. Tell us about the future of the Oversight Project. Seems like you've been doing a lot of good work. What's this year going to look like?
I appreciate that. So there are going to be some strategic structural changes coming down the pike for the very real reason that we already know what this resistance is going to look like. It's going to be let out in the states. You're going to have all these people think they're running for president in 2028, Pritzker, Newsom, etc. California just set aside like $50 million or something to litigate against Trump. That will be the source of agitation and resistance. So we spent the last few years beating up Biden, which is just elder abuse, is the easiest thing anyone could ever do. I mean, this document's just
I always said it felt bad.
He was just so bad. It wasn't hard investigating Joe Biden. We're going to go move this puppy to the states. All of our lawyers, our investigators, and state partnerships, we're going to be the counter resistance to those fights. And in addition to those states, the nonprofits. Here in D.C., it's about seeing through the mandate. This is a major de-weaponization event that's going to occur. With Kash Patel, the FBI, and Pam Bondi up at DOJ, we need to make sure the mandate is executed. So we're going to help them do that to the extent possible and get out all of the things that the Biden administration, held back. Because history should not look fondly on Joe Biden. We're going to figure out who was running the White House the last 4 years. We're gonna tie and put a bow on a lot of these stories.
Go follow the Oversight Project. They are going to have a lot of good work coming up this year. Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.